From candy to costumes, Halloween is a fun filled time for children, but it's also a night that they are more at risk for injury than any other day of the year. Today, we're going to discuss safety tips like costume safety, staying visible, and inspecting candy. And here to help us out is our resident expert, Dr. Marissa Abbey, the Injury Prevention Manager at Children's Health. This is Children's Health Checkup, where we answer parents' most common questions about raising healthy and happy kids. I'm Prakash Chandran. So, Marissa, as a parent myself, I think all of us want a trick-free evening for our children. But let's just start the conversation with why it's so important to raise awareness about keeping kids safe during Halloween.
Absolutely, yes. Like Halloween is my favorite holiday, and we love dressing up and going trick-or-treating. But when I go out with my son, I've taught him some specific safety lessons on pedestrian safety because Halloween is the most dangerous night of the year for our kiddos. So on average, we know across the country, children are more than twice as likely to be hit by a car and die from that injury on Halloween night over any other time of the year.
I was looking at the website at childrens.com/Halloween. Great resource there. There are 10 great safety tips to stay safe while you're trick-or-treating. And the very first one is visibility. So why don't we dive right into it and maybe talk to us a little bit about the importance of visibility and how we can stay more visible while we're trick-or-treating with our children.
Absolutely. So, it's getting to be fall. It's getting dark earlier. And the main thing that we want is children to be visible to drivers. And so depending on their costume, we want you to add plenty of reflective tape or stickers to their costumes or bags. Kids can carry flashlights or wear those glow stick necklaces so that, they're super visible when crossing the street. And we also want kids to see as well. And so instead of maybe having big masks that might obstruct their vision, we can choose face paint or makeup instead of those larger masks over their face.
Yeah, because they need to be able to see the cars as well, because it's not only the car seeing them, it's like, sometimes they have these massive masks and they can't see anything, so they're stumbling around, right?
Or they're walking through yards and, they trip over something in the yard.
Right. I'm sure that happens a lot. So at some of the other tips, especially around the costume, what other things should parents or children be mindful of when putting on their costume?
Well, we want them to be to fit their bodies well so that, they don't have floppy clown shoes and things that might be too big for them. That will just help them trip right over whatever they might be walking into. So making sure the costume fits well, making sure they don't have big masks. Those will be the main tips to keep them from falling.
What about older kids that are heading out without their parents? What should parents know and share with their children in order to stay safe?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I think that's probably the most important tip. Common sense prevention tips for Halloween are the same as other times that your child might be walking in the neighborhood or walking to school. So we know that kids should not be walking by themselves until they're around 9 or 10. And this is because the part of our brain that accurately judges the speed of a car and how quickly it's coming in that distance, that doesn't really develop until the age of 10 or 11. And so kids, even though they might be able to see a car coming, they aren't able to determine if they have enough time to cross the street until they're that age. So we want the adults to walk with the children on Halloween if they're younger than 10. But other tips that kids should know is, when they're crossing the street, they shouldn't just run across or dart out between parked cars. And we want them to look both ways, but it's left first and then right and then left again is kind of how we want them to cross the street.
Yeah, definitely making sure to look twice and 3 times, especially during Halloween. But, one of the things that I'm curious, we're talking about, pedestrian safety for the kids. But, as a driver that is potentially driving through some of these neighborhoods where kids are trick-or-treating, and it feels like they're starting earlier and earlier. What advice might you have for drivers in order to make sure that it's safe on both sides of the table?
Right. And I don't know about your kids, but mine have already eaten candy before they go trick-or-treating. And so they're excited. It's a fun time. They're hyped up on sugar, and they're probably not being as safe as they normally would, when they're walking to the bus stop or wherever. So we know that, kids are already going to move in unpredictable ways on that evening. So drivers definitely should slow down. We should turn our headlights on early so that they see us coming in that dusk period where it's not quite dark yet. Be alert in the neighborhoods when you're driving home. Enter and exit your driveway carefully. That's kind of a danger zone. As you're backing out of your driveway, you may not see children coming in your rearview mirror or in your backup camera. So, make sure that you enter and exit your driveway carefully. And of course, avoid your cell phone. Don't be a distracted driver, especially in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially important to really be on the lookout and have your full attention on the road, especially on Halloween night. You made a lot of great points there. I think one of the hardest things that I see in this list is inspect candy. And it says, have children avoid eating candy until you've had the chance to inspect it first. Wow. How do you do that? And tell us a little bit about why that's important.
Well, what we do at the end of the night is kind of dump everything out. And of course, try to make a rule around how many pieces that they're going to eat, before they go to bed or per day or whatever. But just look over and make sure that the wrappers aren't torn, and that everything looks like it came from the store.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest problem I have with my kids is they want to eat it as they get it.
I see.
And I have to just say, slow down a little bit because of the reasons that you mentioned, but there's also allergies as well, right? Some kids may have allergies that can be difficult to manage, especially when they're trick-or-treating and see something sweet. So, maybe talk a little bit about how parents might be a little safer in terms of provisioning candy for their children and really making sure that it's allergy-free.
Absolutely. I think if your child has a major food allergy, like a peanut allergy, hopefully you can brush up on which candy is going to contain those items that might be dangerous for your child to eat. Possibly if that's the case, that you have some extra snacks that they could eat if they happen to get the candy that they're not supposed to eat. And then, of course, we always have like pencils and stickers and things to hand out, glow-in-the-dark bugs, that kids can choose instead of choosing candy, so that we're able to give something fun to everybody.
That's a really good tip for the people that are staying at home. It doesn't have to be that massive bag of candy from the grocery store because there's so many fun things that you can hand out. So that's a really good tip. I see one here around never entering someone's home, and I totally understand this notion of stranger danger. But what about if it's a haunted house? Some people will set up their homes to where they want you to go through and experience everything they've set up. What are your thoughts around that?
That's a great question. I think if you're with them and you're familiar with the neighbor or the neighborhood, that you would use your best judgment to go with them into the haunted house. But I would tell them never to enter the haunted house by themselves.
That's really good advice. I think as a parent, just making sure that one of the things you said that's important there is having an understanding and a comfort level with the neighborhood that your child is going to first. So you can get a sense of the type of people that live there, the homes that they're going to be visiting, so they can stay as safe as possible. That's really good. Just to kind of wrap up here, is there anything else that we didn't cover today that you'd like parents or children to know about staying safe during Halloween?
I think we hit on everything. What I do, because I have a 6-year-old, and so we are crossing the street constantly, right? You go from one side of the street to the other as you cross to do trick-or-treating. And it's a great time to practice and teach them how to cross the street safely because you're doing it so often. And it's also a great time to model safe pedestrian behavior. So we kind of use it as a nice teaching time as well as a fun time.
Advice, and I really appreciate your time today, Dr. Abby. So that's Dr. Marissa Abby, the Injury Prevention Manager at Children's Health. Thank you for listening to Children's Health Checkup, and you can head to childrens.com/Halloween to see the tips that we discussed today. If you found this podcast helpful, please rate and review or share the episode, and please follow Children's Health on your social channels. Thanks, and we'll talk next time.